now a word from our sponsor, Anchor.fm. Here's the deal. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's one of the easiest ways to create a podcast. Let me start. In my first episode ever, I talked about fear. And fear comes from a lot of places, one of them being able to access technology. But Anchor FM is free. It's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. They'll even distribute it for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and a bunch more. And guess what? The coolest thing is they even connect you with sponsors if you want at no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So here's the deal. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Again, go to anchor.fm to get started or search in your app library for anchor.fm. On today's episode of Let's Build This, I'm going to share with you an example of what not to do. And there's a prime example that I want to base it in real world and something we probably all deal with. All right. If you haven't figured out by now, I do most of these while I am driving to or from my office. And that being said, I deal with a lot of traffic every single day. And one of the things that I guess in this world that we're in right now, it seems almost that people have forgotten how to drive or the rules of the road. That's not everybody, but that's a lot of people. All right, there's things like here in Milwaukee where I'm from, people do something called baselining where there's obviously a right turn only lane at many of the stoplights, and it defines it and clearly has an arrow on the ground. There's a sign up that says right turn only, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But people don't care. They hop in the right lane, and when the light turns green or is about to turn green, that person in the right lane, rather than turning right as they're supposed to, decides to gun it and sprint their car as fast as they can to get in the front of the line of all the cars going straight. And this causes a lot of accidents here. It causes just a lot of chaos. Anyway, that's not the point of my story. Today is a little bit different driving story. I was on my way to work yesterday, and for those of you who don't know the rule, the unwritten rule, and I'm pretty sure the written rule of the road in most states is that slower traffic is supposed to stay to the right. Doesn't matter where you're driving, doesn't matter where you're going, doesn't matter interstate, local streets, state highways, county highways, doesn't matter. Slower traffic is supposed to stay to the right because the left lane is created often for people passing. And whether you agree with that or not, that's neither here nor there. And it really doesn't impact the story except for this one thing. I'm driving, and there's this car in front of me, and it has this bumper sticker on it. And it's a pretty clear bumper sticker. It's large enough where you can read it from about 10, 20 feet back. And it's an interesting bumper sticker, one I've never seen, right? Something that defines this rule of the road. It says, slowertraffickeepright.com. Now, totally for it, right? That probably means, and I haven't looked it up, I'm probably going to, probably means there's a website out there explaining that law and why it's important and how it avoids crashes and like all that stuff, right? Big awareness campaign, right? So whoever this gentleman is in this car has clearly determined that this rule, this law, this idea of slower traffic keep right is important enough to brand himself as such. The ironic part is he's in the left lane going 5 under the speed limit. All right. So I don't know about you. I have sometimes been thought of having a little bit of road rage just because I hate driving in the car because I'd like to just be where I want to be. So this really bothered me for a couple of reasons. One, he's in the left lane. There's nobody in the right lane. There's absolutely nobody. And he's going 5 under the speed limit. So by following the rule of the road, I follow him in the left lane because I want to pass him for, not terribly long, right? And I'm trying to go the speed limit. I come up on him and I then slow down, right? So I'm still staying, where you can still see the rear wheels touching the cement. Like that's when you stop and like you're supposed to stay 4 seconds back, all that stuff. So I'm doing that. I did it for about 20 seconds in hopes that he would move over to the right lane. Well, he didn't. Okay. So I decide to pass him on the right. And this guy gives me the dirtiest look ever because I passed him on the right. And I'm going, what the heck? All right, long story short, like, come on. Like, he chose to brand himself as this rule is that important to me. He chose to believe that this rule is that important that he would put a bumper sticker on his car, and yet he's not willing to follow his own ethos, his own message, his own everything, right? This is a clear example of somebody doing, you can define it a couple different ways. It can be considered a bait and switch in a lot of ways. If you're in business and doing sales, it can be considered false advertising or false marketing. It can be considered just poor brand choice, right? And I understand, yeah, the guy might not have owned the car. He could have been borrowing it, whatever. But either way, he's driving a car. And the point of this story is that if you're going to brand yourself as such, then you need to make sure you are following and modeling what you are saying and what you are believing. And you can define the limits and the boundaries of that, and you can define the why of that, and you can do all of that through the content you create, through the messaging that you put out there, through the corporate brand or through the personal brand, and you can do it through your conversations with clients, customers, internally, externally, all that stuff. Because if you don't, you have just created the biggest discreditor to you and your brand and your company ever. And this guy was driving his car 5 miles under the speed limit in the left lane when he has a bumper sticker that says slowertraffickeepright.com on his car. All right. Part of today was rant. Part of it wanted to illustrate what happens in the real world when people do this stuff and why, like, I don't know the guy. I don't care. I will probably never see him again. But if I did and I saw that car again and he tried to sell me something, guess what I'd do? I'm not going to buy from him. I'm not going to talk to him. I'm probably not going to give him the time of day. And if eventually he does build up trust, it's just going to take that much longer to do it. So do me a favor. When you're thinking about branding and you're thinking about messaging and you're building out your values and you're doing all of that stuff, be clear. Be clear to yourself that you can execute and uphold it. And make sure you make an effort every day. Nobody's expecting people to be perfect. But the point is that when people come across you for the first time ever, and if you're doing exactly the opposite of what you say you're supposed to be doing, or your branding says you're doing, or any of that stuff, they're not going to believe you. They're going to get irritated and go, what the heck, right? You told me this, but you're doing this? Doesn't work. All right. With that, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Hopefully you can take some time, go just think about that today, and I'd be curious if anybody else has had similar situations like that in real life that may not have anything to do with work or marketing or anything around professional life, but ideas of when people have seen that stuff and it just it confuses you. So drop some comments, hit me up, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, and I will talk to you there. Take care. Bye.